welcome to the stage your keynote speaker, Sahra, Vang, Nguyen. That's weird. When I was 5 years old, people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a singer, like Mariah Carey. When I was 10 years old, people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, a painter, like Picasso. When I was 15 years old and people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, a revolutionary, like Malcolm X. When I was 20 years old, people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, an influencer, like Oprah. And today, at 29 years old, when people ask me, what do you want to be in the future? I say, I have no fucking clue. And I've never been happier. I've let go of the idea of what I want to be in the future, because I'm always going to be me. And if anything, the goal is to work towards becoming a more true, genuine, and uninhibited version of myself every day. I believe we can truly reach our unique potential when we reframe this conventional idea of go to school, decide on a career, pick a job, and then build a linear trajectory for the resume. Your job doesn't define you. Your career or company doesn't define you. You define you. How you treat people on a daily basis defines you. How you contribute to your community, your society, and your world defines you. How you make decisions, whether it's from a place of fear or from a place of love, defines you. How you feel about yourself, how you look at yourself, how you love yourself, defines you. The question we should be asking is, what do you want to do in your life? What do you want to accomplish? And how do you want to contribute to this world? The titles and labels, they will follow. When you frame the question of doing rather than being, you might discover that there are hundreds of things that you want to do in your lifetime. Because even though society wants to put us into a box, our potential surpasses all boundaries. Life is long, and you can do it all. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, where I grew up in a neighborhood that was predominantly Black and Latino. My family was the only Asian house in the block, and from kindergarten to 12th grade, I went through the Boston public school system, where Asian Americans were always a tiny minority of the school population. Growing up, I had a really hard time embracing my Asian American identity. I didn't have many Asian American role models around me, and I definitely didn't see any on TV. And this was before the internet, when we only watched television. The perception of myself and of others was highly shaped by what I saw in the media. And that included white standards of beauty, family dinner interactions, expressions of love, and stereotypes about Asian Americans being nerds, quiet, and submissive. In high school, I didn't know how to be myself. I felt like the teachers and peers around me, they all expected me to be the stereotype that they were seeing in the media. They expected me to be the model minority. Even though I loved getting straight A's, and cultural values like humility often made me feel a little reserved and quiet at times, and I was an introvert, I didn't want to be a stereotype. I didn't want to be predictable or give anyone the satisfaction of bossing me in. So I became reactionary. I would do things to form my identity, not because it came from a genuine place, but because I wanted to be an oxymoron. I became rebellious, and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I started staying out late past curfew, worrying my parents to death, who are in this room, so I can't give you too many juicy details about my rebellious years. But I wanted so badly to prove to people that I was unique, that I was different, and I wasn't just the perfect model minority stereotype. But my approach was wrong. My approach was decentering from myself. Instead of truly connecting with who I was from the inside out, I was putting too much emphasis on external values, forming myself in reaction to whatever these outside expectations of me were. Sophomore year of high school, I joined an organization that changed my life and influenced almost all of my major life decisions thereafter. It was a youth-run, youth-led social justice organization called the Coalition for Asian Pacific American Youth, also known as CAPE, where I was first introduced to Asian American studies, learning about social movements and systems of oppression and how they operate on a daily basis, deconstructing stereotypes, the history of Asians in America, and understanding my own experiences in this new context was truly liberating. For the first time, I felt like I could be myself. By senior year of high school, I applied to the University of California, Los Angeles, also known as UCLA, as an Asian American Studies major. Because even at a young age, I knew that the path of exploring my identity, my community's history, and deepening my consciousness would be integral to me becoming a successful and unstoppable force in the world. Because knowing yourself is going to be more important than knowing any manual or formula in life. I applied to UCLA and I got rejected. I was heartbroken. I wrote an appeal letter explaining to them how passionate I was about pursuing a degree in Asian American Studies, and then they let me in. I got accepted. My parents were happy I got into college, but they weren't exactly thrilled about the fact that I double majored in Asian American Studies and World Arts and Cultures. And I really don't blame them. Let's imagine if I were in my parents' shoes at the time, and I escaped Vietnam by boat after the war. I lived in a refugee camp for a few years. I came to America with nothing and busted my ass for 19 years working a laundromat so that my daughter could have a college education in the most powerful country in the world, and she chose two majors I've never heard of. I would be pissed. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Sweet child. At the time, my parents would ask me, what kind of job are you going to get with a double major in Asian American Studies and art? And I didn't have a good answer for them. I said, I don't know. Because at the time, I honestly wasn't motivated by the idea of the job. I was motivated by my values, which are self-discovery, empowerment, critical thinking, compassion, social justice, and being an amazing fucking human being. And graduates, I know that from where you sit, my fluffy words can have little reassurance when facing the daunting questions of, well, how do I get a job? And how do I pay my bills? And how can I make money to support my family? Those are all really important questions that we all need to ask ourselves and we all need to answer. But not before we ask ourselves the truly hard questions of, what gives me joy? What am I scared of? And how do I contribute to society? Since I graduated from UCLA, I've done some pretty cool things that I'm proud of that Christine mentioned earlier. I've worked in academia as a director of a writing program. I've toured the country performing poetry. I became a digital correspondent for NBCNews.com. I helped launch the video channel for NBC Asian America. I produced documentaries, and I've even worked with Vice as an on-camera host, and I opened a small Vietnamese American restaurant in Brooklyn with 3 friends. Woo. And I'll be honest, my path has not been easy, but it has always been worth it. So when people ask me today, what are you doing with your degree in Asian American Studies? I tell them everything. My degree and my titles, those things don't define me. But engaging with Asian American Studies and student activism and community building, all those things helped me find myself. And as long as you embrace your identity and you accept all the parts of you and you honor yourself with love, courage, and compassion, you'll never really be lost in this world. Trust me. Sure, we'll arrive at moments of confusion or conflict, but when you truly know yourself, you'll know the right decisions that only you can make. And when you live a life guided by your values, you will always be on the right path. And let's be real, we're living in a world where technology is replacing a lot of human-operated functions. From self-driving cars to robotic personal assistants to automatic machinery, even algorithms to calculate anything. Naturally, a lot of jobs will be replaced by technology. So where does that leave us? If you don't strive to be as uniquely you as possible, you will be replaced. Everybody has something distinct and special about them. And that's simply being who you are in all of its multifaceted beauty. There are millions of doctors and writers and journalists and filmmakers and lawyers and teachers in this world. And whichever path you choose to pursue, the best way to stand out is to fulfill the path in your own unique values, your own vision, your own character, your own history, your own experience, your own perspective, and love. Remember that no one else in this world can give you security. Not financial security, not career security, and definitely not emotional security. Only you can give yourself security. And that comes from being confident, clear, and determined in your identity, your values, and your desires. Every day, the world is changing. And every day, we are changing. So be ready to evolve. And allow yourself the freedom to change as an individual. And with it, your desires, your goals, and your vision will also change. Ask yourself, what is it that I need? And then ask, what is it that the world needs?
At this intersection is where you will find the answer to your ever-evolving place in society. I'll close with one of my favorite quotes by the rapper
Notorious B.I.G. reminding us to make decisions from love, not fear. He says, stay far from timid. Only make moves when your heart's in it. And live the phrase, sky's the limit. Congratulations to the graduating class of 2016.